the thing, isn't it?
Indeed.
That if you know that you will be deported, if that is going to be the case, people are less likely to speak up, aren't they?
Yes, although there are some cases here where there is exploitation occurring, where people have the right to be working here. So there's a couple of things we need to do. Firstly, weeding out employers who we might be concerned might not uphold proper employment practices before they're able to access migrant labour. The second thing is making sure that we're educating those who may be at risk of exploitation but have legitimate rights to work here. And the third thing is we can, of course, provide anonymous ways that people can report on issues around exploitation. We are also undertaking some research into the space of migrant exploitation. We're having a third party do that so that we can have that free and frank exchange with those who have been in this position to better understand what's happening and how we can better protect people.
Okay, let's just talk about another Immigration New Zealand case, which is the one regarding Carol Schrobeck. The information regarding Richie Hardcore being in touch with you, did he lobby at all in the Schrobeck case?
My understanding from the answers that the Minister of Immigration has given in the House, my understanding is that he ruled that out.
Okay. When did you realise, though, that you had been texted specifically about that case by him?
As I've pointed out many times in the House, I received no correspondence until this case was in the public domain. I didn't know about this case until it was in the public domain. I've been very clear on that. So I received a unsolicited text after this was in the public, and it was obviously a commentary on that.
Okay, so the content of that text message, you say it's unsolicited.
Yes.
What exactly does it say?
And I'm going to seek a little bit of advice because, of course, as I've pointed out, I receive hundreds of pieces of correspondence from the general public in my position. I just want to make sure, of course, not everyone, when they do that, has an expectation that their name, detail and messages, be them email or what have you, will be released. So I am going to get a bit of advice on that, but I have given a summary. Of course, it came after this was in the public domain because I was not aware of the case until it was. And so it essentially gave his view on the issue. He publicly acknowledged in social media, in fact, that he knew of Mr. Schrobeck and his text indicated that he knew him and gave his view on the case.
Who are you going to seek the advice from? Because it's been several days.
Oh, the Ombudsman.
Okay, and you haven't been able to get that yet?
I haven't got a clear final view from him yet, no.
Okay, how would you characterise the content of the text,
again, I do want to be really clear here because I've heard a lot of accusations come from the opposition on this.
Well, this is why I wonder if it would be a way of clearing it up.
But again, I do want to be wary about precedents. But I think the most important point here is I knew nothing of this case until after the decision was made and it was in the public domain. The message I received was unsolicited. It was someone sending me their opinion. I did not reply. I did not tell anyone about the message. I didn't engage in it. And so if I stand accused of possessing a phone and being contactable, then fair enough. But
is it innocuous?
I absolutely consider it. It has to be because, of course, I until that point did not even know that Mr. Hardcore knew Mr. Schrobeck. And again, I wasn't engaged in the decision. So he simply sent me a text to share his view, acknowledge he knew him, and share his view on the decision that had originally been made. Okay,
if you do get a clear view from the Ombudsman in the next few days, will you be releasing the text message?
I will listen to the Ombudsman, but as I say, I don't know. I don't want to set a timeline on him on when he'll give me that guidance.
Okay, but I understand that Ian Lees-Galloway has indicated there is going to be more information coming out on this case later in the week, perhaps Friday?
He has an Official Information Act request and he needs to obviously fulfil the expectations under the OIA, keeping in mind, of course, that there is potential further legal proceedings on this case. So he'll be fulfilling the expectations as set out in the legislation.
So does that mean that there will be a further dump of information about this case, be it large or small, on Friday?
He's had requests and he, of course, needs to fulfil those obligations. But I haven't spoken to him in any detail about when that will be going out.
Sure, but I guess sometimes OIA requests end up with the Ombudsman. It ends up taking longer. Do you anticipate this taking longer and not being released until next year, or do you anticipate this being released this year?
I haven't got any advice on that. My understanding is that he'll be fulfilling his obligations, which is essentially within the working days period, which I think takes us to this side of Christmas. Okay.
The issue there, I suppose, is that if this is information that is going to come out perhaps during the day on Friday, the Friday before Christmas, you could argue that that is somewhat cynical because there's less scrutiny
but you could
that can be
equally argue
applied.
that if he didn't do that, he wouldn't be fulfilling his requirements. He has to get it
He
out,
could put
I
it
believe.
out earlier.
But of course, there are also, he does need to make sure that he deals with this carefully. This is a case where potentially there may be legal challenge. I think everyone would expect that his first and foremost in his mind would be preventing that from happening.
Just going back to the situation with Richie Hardcore, there are lots of photographs of you with him, but then there are lots of photographs of you with lots of people. So
indeed.
just to be clear on this,
how would you regard drug and
him?
Alcohol campaigner. He's also an anti-violence, anti-sexual harassment campaigner. I think you'll find a large number of members of Parliament have met Mr. Hardcore in the role that he plays.
So how would you characterise him? I mean, is he a friend or a family friend?
Again, in regards to this case, I've pointed out the extent of my discussion with him. I probably haven't seen him in about 8 months. I received an unsolicited text message. That's pretty much the end of the story.
How does this all stack up, though? You talk about wanting transparency and wanting open government. Does this pass the sniff test, the way that this case has been dealt with?
And I've given a description. Again, it's very hard for me to prevent people from contacting me, and I've given a description of essentially what the message says. Again, a commentary past it being in the public domain. But I do want to be careful of precedents here. As I say, hundreds of people, when they contact me, don't necessarily think I'll then put their name, contact details, and the content of their messages out into the public. And I literally did receive a significant amount of correspondence on this issue. So I just want to get a bit of guidance. I think people will understand that.
This is the last time that we'll be speaking to you this year.
Yes, and I thought we were going to discuss climate change, but no big issues of the day.
That, I guess there will be more time for climate change next year.
Undoubtedly.
What score would you give your government for the year?
I'm always reluctant to score. Perhaps it's,
Oh, go on, indulge me.
Oh, no, mostly, of course, because it matters very little what I think. It matters what the public think. And I hope that we're meeting their expectations.
But you are the leader, so what would you think?
I think we've done well. We have taken on some big challenges. We said when we came in we wanted to address things that had been, over a decade's built up, lack of investment in infrastructure, environmental issues, be it water or climate change, inequality, child poverty. We have made inroads on each of those. Of course, these things take time, so I'm looking forward to next year.
A different Christmas for you this year?
Yes,
with baby Neve. What plans?
Exactly. Very simple plans, spending time with family.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern in the Wellington studio. It's 27 minutes to 8.
Ko te hōtaka o te ata tēnei, te ono karaka i te ata tainoa ki te iwa karaka i te ata era o te wiki mahi. This is Morning Report from 6 right through to 9.